Hello, everyone. Just a quick announcement here. I know I didn't release a Bravo Weekly News episode because I was really sick for a few days and I'm way behind. And now I only have time to do one episode this week. And I just felt like the Valley after show, catching up on those was the most important thing because the finale just aired and everyone's talking about it and all that stuff. So, I'm going to do just a Valley after show for this week's episode. And then next week, I will be back with the weekly news and I'll just do like 2 weeks worth of news and it'll be like a bigger episode for you. So I just wanted to let you all know. Thank you so much for your, understanding. And I really hope that you enjoy this after show recap of the last 3 after show episodes. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Okay, everyone, let's get into the Valley after show. We're going back, okay? We're going back because my life has been in shambles. So we're going to episode 12. Not in shambles the way that the Valley people's lives are, so that's the good news. But we all have our shit, as they say. So, what was the first subtopic? I forgot to write it down. Shoot. Okay, it's basically just like the whole Danny situation. Okay, that's the subtopic. Actually, the subtopic should be Jason enables his wife. Okay, so Jason says that Janet, this honestly, guys, I don't even know if I can say this. It's laughable. Like, I just I can't believe these words came out of his mouth. So are you ready? Jason says that Janet never wanted to keep talking about the whole Danny thing, but her hand was forced because Kristen started it, with the whole stop attacking Danny, stop attacking Danny. And then he says, so, what's our defense to that? What? I don't, this is like craziness here. It's like, the only reason that Danny was ever brought up in the first place as a thing was in the initial trip in Santa Barbara because Janet and Brittany and Jasmine like made it a whole thing. And then it was used as sort of like, I don't know, like a poker chip for the rest of the season anytime that, Jason's ring situation or anything else was brought up. And the only reason that that was brought up is because you guys started the whole thing about Danny. Like, you can't, like, it's not Kristen who's the problem bringing up Danny all the time. She's only bringing up Danny because she's defending herself. This is confusing. And I feel like I'm confusing myself, but I know what I'm saying. Okay. I hope you guys do too. The only reason that she's being like, stop attacking Danny is because she's saying that's why I brought up the Jason ring thing. You know what I mean? Like, she's using it as the defense. So, yeah, I don't understand how Jason doesn't understand that. Jason is such an enabler and he's as bad as Janet from the after show and from today's the finale episode. He's just as bad. And he gets right in there. And as Nene once said famously, you need to stay out of women's business. He gets right in there. He's all like fighting with the women. I'm like, oh, who are you? Like, ugh, ugh. I so got the ick from him this episode. Um, so Jason says, well, congrats, Kristen. You forced this out of her. He literally says that, guys. He literally says that in the after show. No one forced any information about Danny out of Janet. Okay. Anything Janet has said about Danny has been by her own choice. And she seems pretty like happy to volunteer the information to the world. So is it Kristen's fault as well that she outed Nia about going to alcoholics, about going to Al-Anon? What about that? Whose fault is that, Jason? Like, not everything, it's insanity. This is not like Kristen did not force this out of her. she can also defend herself against the Jason ring rumor without bringing up new indiscretions or information about Danny. She's the one who's choosing to add more fuel to the fire to be like, well, not only is it sexual assault, it's also that we were at this thing and there was these fans and he said he liked girls in skirts or whatever the fuck it was. Like that. And from my recollection, that's not a word. Okay. I'm really losing it here, guys. As I recall is a better way to say it. Janet was telling them that like while they're like sitting at like a picnic or a lunch or something. Like Kristen wasn't even there. Like it's all crazy. Okay. Janet says she understands it's harsh language, but when you put your hands on someone without consent, that's the term. See, here's the thing is like she's found an argument that she can't lose because it is the proper term. Okay, so it is technically the right term, but I think Janet is purposefully playing dumb. Like she knows it's not about whether it's the right term or not. It's that she's choosing that one on purpose because she knows it has like a heavier connotation to it than, a lot of other words that you could have used. So she's sort of like purposefully using that word because it has more weight to it, and then she's kind of playing dumb when people are like, don't, when Kristen gets upset, she's like, what? That's the right word. What do you mean? Like, it's very annoying. It's very passive aggressive too, which is very Janet. Jasmine says she's glad that Melissa spoke up on the boat. She says, technically it is sexual assault, but she says she's glad Melissa spoke up and was like, can you guys like shut the fuck up about this basically? Which, yeah, and I think, Melissa inadvertently ended up kind of proving a point that the audience was trying to say, which is that Janet is using this as, as a poker chip or a playing card or whatever you want to call it, like almost like a get out of jail free card. I don't know. Like she's using it to be right, not because she actually cares about what happened to Melissa. And it's becoming clearer as the season goes on that she doesn't give a shit about Melissa and what happened to her. And she doesn't really care about this as a topic. It's just the fact that she can use it to bring up drama that's not about her and her family, to maybe deflect from, I don't know, whatever is going on in her life, because what do we really know about what's going on with her and Jason? Nothing, right? And she's using this, and it's very frustrating because we all see that. Then she's like, maybe I should, Janet's like, maybe I should have used lighter words, but what words would you like me, would you prefer? What would you use to describe it? God, she's so passive aggressive. It's so fucking annoying. Okay. Jasmine says, thanks for sticking up for us, but we've handled it. And then she says, it just feels like she's bringing it up when we've already moved past it. Yes, we know. Exactly. That is the problem, as I just said. Again, like even the person who it happened to is like, shut up. Like we're trying to move forward and you keep bringing this up. And like, I wish Jasmine had more of a backbone when it came to Janet. Like, why don't you say, like, stop using my incident, trauma, whatever you want to call it, to like win every argument? Like, do you even really give a shit about that? But I don't know. Jasmine, I'm not too keen on the last few episodes. Like, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like she's kind of like a Janet enabler as well, which I don't love. Um, Which, like, she wasn't at one point, she had her, like, fight with Janet, but I feel like since then, I don't know, there's been kind of a turn. Anyways, then Janet makes a comment about, so speaking of, by the way, speaking of Kristen is forcing Janet's hand, here's an example of Janet freely volunteering information about Danny. No one is forcing your hand. So Janet makes a comment about how it's happened to others. And then they show a flashback of her, and the little skirts, girls in little skirts comment, which is funny because she goes, well, it's happened to others. And then that's the example. And I'm like, well, that's not sexual assault. I'm sorry. Like a guy saying he likes women in little skirts is not sexual assault. And I guess if he said it and he was unwanted touching someone or whatever, I don't know what happened, what the situation was, then yes, that would be. But from what she's told us, this is just an example of Danny just being like probably drunk and gross and being like, oh, look, she's wearing a short skirt. I like girls that wear short skirts, and just being like a gross guy. It's not an example of sexual assault, though. Okay. Nia says, in terms of this story, she's heard 3 different versions of it from Janet's mouth. And do I think that, Nia's going to protect her family and etc.? Of course I do, because that's what any woman would do. But I also feel like Nia doesn't lie. Like, I don't think that Nia would tell a bold-faced lie. So I do think if she says she's heard 3 different versions of this, I believe her. Okay. And then it's funny because then Janet says, well, that's what Jared and Jason heard. So Janet didn't even hear this. Like, she wasn't even there, which I already knew that. It's just the reminder makes me even more infuriated because it's like, why are you acting like you were the firsthand witness of this? Like, you shouldn't be spreading this around if you're not even sure, you weren't even there 100%. Because again, it's like a damaging thing to say. But Jason says, so then, sorry, when Janet says that, she says, that's what Jason and Jared heard. And the producer goes, actually, Jason says he didn't hear that. Like, you hear the producer saying it from behind the camera. And then they flash over to Jason, who says he didn't hear that, but he was there that night and that he thinks that Brittany heard it. So who the fuck heard it? Okay. Okay. So now we go over to Brittany. I love how they just flashed right over to them. So then they flash over to Brittany, who says, wait for it, guys, I didn't personally hear it. Okay. But she says, but I've heard that rumor. So Jared and Jason tell Janet that they heard this, but Jason didn't actually hear it. And then he says, I think Brittany heard it. And then Brittany says she didn't personally hear it, but she's heard the rumor. Well, of course you've heard the rumor because your friend Janet won't shut the fuck up about it. It seems like the only person who maybe heard it, I guess, who's left, who we haven't spoken to, is Jared. And I don't know. Am I like believing everything Jared says, like one of Janet's little minions? No, it's not a credible source. I'm sorry. And even if he did, I also want to say this might be an unpopular opinion. If he did say that to the fans, it's gross. Okay. If he said that to some girls, it's gross. If he said it to his friends, like he was standing there with whoever and he was like, I like girls who wear short skirts, it is still gross and disrespectful to his wife. Yes. But it's not the end of the world. Okay, it's not the end of the world to say he finds that hot. Okay. Now, again, if he went up to these girls who were fans and like said it to them in a gross way, that's different. But again, we're not getting any clarity because none of these people were there. That's what's driving me crazy. None of these people were there in this moment and even heard this. The only person who maybe possibly was there, but we're not even that sure if he was, is Jared. Again, not a reliable source, anyways. So I don't know why. Like, this is the kind of thing, it's like, why even bring this up? Because like, nobody can validate this. It's so stupid. Okay. Okay. So then we go back to Janet, who says that Jason told her that he had to pull Danny off of multiple women multiple times and then called him the next day and was like, Halloween should have been rock bottom, dude. You're going to lose your family. Then they go over. So this is Janet's version of the story. And she says that this is what Jason says. Danny says he was drunk that night. Jason called him the next day and said, you did nothing wrong. But there were some fans who wanted to take pictures with us and we need to be careful next time. So this is what I honestly think. I think the truth is in the middle. I don't believe Janet's version that he was groping multiple women. I also don't necessarily believe that it was just that, he's made an inappropriate comment to some fans and that was it. It sounds like it was like this is probably what happened because, again, the truth is usually in the middle. He was probably taking pictures with some fans. He probably made the short skirt comment to the fans, which is weird to say because one of them was probably wearing a skirt. He probably put his arms around them or something to take a picture and was maybe like too handsy or something like that. That's probably what happened. And Jason was like, dude, like, you're drunk. Like, sorry, my friend, he's drunk. He's a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. Like, dude, whatever. Like, probably one of those situations, which again is fully wrong on Danny's part. And, you know, he's a moron for doing that. And he needs to get his shit together and probably stop drinking, right? Because he's clearly a bad drunk. And he also needs to keep his hands to himself. But all that being said, I think that's probably what happened. Okay, but I'm just saying, like, there's just this version that Janet's telling, oh, he went around groping multiple women and Jason had to pull him off. Like, I think that's probably Janet's version of things because so far it seems like she likes to add like seasoning to things. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, I'm not saying there's no truth to this because I do think there's some truth to it. But, all that being said, I'm still kind of like, why are you the ones? Why is this your problem? Even if all this is true, he'll sink himself. Do you know what I mean? Like he'll again, your friends are there to look out for you. I get it, but they're not looking out for you at this point. At this point, they're taking everything you've ever done that is questionable and using it and weaponizing it basically. Like they're not there to like look out for you because they think you have a drinking problem and they think you need help and they don't want you to lose your wife. Like it's just like it's clear what the intentions are. So Janet says they all talk about the stuff that happens in the group and then it's only wrong when she does it. Well, no, because you've made it into like Kristen talking about stuff in the group and Jasmine about Jason. You've made that into like a capital offense. So clearly it's not okay for anyone else in the group to talk about anything. It's just because you are okay. I can't do this right now. Okay. Then she also says that she never lies. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that one there. I think we can all agree that just we don't even need to address that. And you know what? I don't actually think that Janet outright lies. What I think she does is she takes the truth, she exaggerates it or adds a little bit of spice or seasoning, as I said, and then goes from there. That's what I think she does. And in some ways, that's even more manipulative. You know what I mean? Because like a straight out lie, like a straight out making things up, like literally out of the blue that didn't happen, like that's like Jax Taylor situation. But, Janet does, she adds things, she twists things, she puts spins on things, and it is technically lying in a way. And in some ways, it's worse because then it kind of traps the person because they have to. And I'm not saying she's worse than Jax, by the way. That's not what I meant. I just meant then like making up like a random lie, like a hockey team wants to hire me. It's like everyone knows you're fucking lying. That's stupid. But what I mean is that when you do that, it sort of forces the other person to take some ownership. And then you can walk away looking right, even if you did exaggerate or add to it, because there is some truth to it. And you sort of almost trap the person into admitting it and saying sorry, which is kind of what they did to Danny a few times this season, now that I think about it. So then we go to Britt telling Jax about the engagement. Ugh, that was such an asshole thing to do. Britt is like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And she's like, I'm so stupid. What was I thinking? And then they flash over to Jax and he's like, big mistake. Yeah. This is one of those cases where it's like, I can't even, like, you can get mad at Jax, of course. He shouldn't have texted the whole fucking guys group. But the real perpetrator this is that one rare case where Brittany is the one who is more in the wrong. Why would you tell Jax? Are you not divorcing this man? Has he not given you enough evidence of like just what a terrible person he is and that he never shuts his mouth and that he'll like fucking tell everybody? Like it's so annoying. So Jax lied to Kristen, of course, and said, it was on the news. That's how I know. And then Kristen's like, it was not on the fucking news, you loser. Anyways, Jack says, Kristen, she likes to like make a mountain out of a molehill, but I understood why she was upset. No, you don't. That's why you just said, that's why you put that little phrase in there ahead of time, the mountain out of a molehill. Because again, it's always with Jax, it's always let me deflect. It's the other person's problem. The other person likes to make big deals out of nothing. What I did wasn't even that bad. Like, fuck off. Britt says she's actually really good at keeping secrets. Doesn't seem like it. So she doesn't know why she did that. Well, I can tell you why you did that. You did that because you were left out of the engagement. You were pissed off about it. And you wanted to be like a part of that storyline and that scene. And you weren't. And you were salty about it. And this was your way of kind of getting quote unquote revenge. I'm sorry. I'm not believing this like tee hee ha ha, like innocent act from Brittany. I do not buy it. Okay. I believe she's a victim of Jax, of course. I think in some way we all are. And she is especially. But do I believe that this was just like a slip of the tongue because he was her person? No, I don't. I really don't. Lala says if you tell Jax something, it's like you want everyone to know. And she's not saying it to Brittany, just kind of in general. But I was like, yeah, I think if you tell Jax something, you subconsciously want everyone to know. Like you wanted to kind of ruin it because you weren't a part of it and you were fucking salty about it, as we saw at the engagement party. Luke and Kristen do believe it was a genuine slip up because they think Britt is a good person. Whatever. We can agree to disagree on that, even though I like Luke and Kristen. Next, we are going to talk about Janet as a fan, which I bolded this subtitle. I don't know why. Janet as a fan. I think it's because I just really believe that she is, because there's a little bit of a debate about it here. So Janet says she's a millennial woman who watches Bravo. Shocking. Okay, but there's a difference between like Lala watches Bravo. Like there's a difference between you watch Bravo and you're like going to like where Sheena is. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, Janet's like, I still watch Bravo. Okay. No one is begrudging you that. It's not about her watching Bravo. It's about the way you act. So Britt and Lala laugh because they're like, Kristen and Janet, they were so close. And Kristen says they were close. They got along and it didn't matter that she was even a fan. And yeah, like I can see like you could become friends with somebody who was a fan of the show. Like I don't think that's like crazy, but when things, or if they do get crazy, that's when you have to kind of, side eye them, right? She said it wasn't until they started filming the Valley, basically, that, Jax brought around Alex, who was Kristen's ex, and then Janet was talking bad about her on camera. And then they show, and I'm so glad they showed this because I really needed like a refresher from season one. They show a confessional from season one where Janet is on a FaceTime call, I think with Michelle, saying that she's had to set a boundary because there's just all the ups and downs in Kristen's relationship with Alex. So yeah, Janet really did start all this. Like so you were, according to Kristen, actual friends. The second you got on reality TV, you flipped the switch, and instead of being a friend, you became like, a coworker who's like playing the game and wants to villainize the crazy Kristen. And that's why everybody doesn't like you, in case Janet's listening. Um, which I know she's not, but I'm just saying. But here's the other thing. If the Valley had never happened, I think Janet and Kristen would still be friends because I think Janet just enjoyed like the clout and the idea of like, I'm friends with Vanderpump Rules people and I can take pictures with them and put it on my Instagram. Fine. However, I do think that the second they got on the show, she was willing to flip on whoever she needed to. And of course, she chose the person who she thought the audience was maybe going to like, based on historically how much we liked or didn't like Kristen. I think she flipped on the person who she thought was going to be the quote unquote villain, and she thought it was going to be Kristen, and she clearly thought wrong. And it blew up in her face. And that shows something. That shows that she was never a real friend. Okay. That's the most important thing. So how she got into the friend group, whether she originally ever intended on trying to get on a show or knew about the show, because clearly the show didn't exist when she became friend. All of that is kind of irrelevant. Like, what really matters is the way that she acted once there was a show, like the quick turn. So Zack says she admitted, as in Janet, that she went to a pool party at the Mondrian. Sheena then says, then they go over to Sheena, who says she was at the Mondrian. She met Janet, who came up to her because she said she recognized her, of course. And then they did shots and they took like 100 pictures on her friend's phone. Oh, yeah, it doesn't sound like a fan at all. You're right, Sheena. Thanks for clarifying that. And then, wait, where was I? And then Janet says, then they became friends. She opened up to Sheena about having marital problems, and this is the part I thought was really funny. Told her that she was getting divorced and then said, "Yeah, I know you went through a divorce at a young age." Yeah, because she watched you on TV. Because she fucking watched it on television. Like, see how she's fucking bringing shit up? Like, she probably brought her divorce up because she knew that her and Sheena would have that in common and that they could connect over both getting married young and getting divorced young. See, this is a little insidious here. Like, this is feeling like it's funny because as they're trying to prove that she's not a fan, they're proving to me like I'm believing even more that she was. Um, and then she said she was feeling down because of her divorce. And Sheena called one day and said, "Let's go to Disneyland for your birthday." And she took her there and she treated her to everything and got her a big birthday girl button. And Janet's like, "I was just touched by her heart." That is so Sheena to like pay for someone's entire Disney World trip and like fucking like, Sheena, stop giving everyone money. Like, it's like this. She did this with the guy that she liked when she like bought him like an Apple Watch or whatever she bought him. And then she got the other guy, the penguin. Like, stop it. Just stop it. But it is funny that like she like treated her on the whole trip. Like, yeah, like Janet was really benefiting from this friendship. Um, Britt says she's the one who put Janet's name forward for the Valley. Thank you so much, Brittany. You've really just blessed us all. And she says, Janet was never trying to get on the show. Yeah, like it's not about that. It's about the way that she acted when she was on the show. Lala says she was never thirsty to get on VPR. Well, yeah, because she's smart enough to know that she's not going to be able to penetrate like an already solid cast. And they're not going to be like adding. They tried that with the new characters and it did not work. Zack says he doesn't think she was actively trying to get on the Valley. He says neither was he, but of course he wanted to once he was offered it. But he says his friendship with Britt started much differently. Like he's like, I didn't meet Britt because I like went to Sir one day. So, do with that what you will. And I see what he's saying. Like it's like he had an authentic prior to TV or Vanderpump Rules ever existing friendship as opposed to, Janet, who was before she knew any of these people, was a fan of the show. Like that's just a fact. Okay. That is just a fact. Then we talk about why were Jasmine and Britt so bothered about Nia and Danny being late for the engagement? And listen, I thought that maybe they were going to say something like maybe Janet was going to, or sorry, not Janet, Jasmine was going to say something that would kind of like justify the reaction. She made it even worse. Like, this is where I was really starting to sour on Jasmine. It wasn't even from anything that happened in the actual episodes of the season, it was more from this after show, to be honest. So, Jasmine says one of the reasons she was so bothered about Nia and Danny being late was because she had to blow up balloons in a hot ass hotel room and was sweating and was upset that the people who were enjoying the beautiful day on the boat weren't there on time. Why? I don't understand these people. Why are you so mad about making your friend's engagement party nice? And like, why are you so upset about having to put effort in? Like, you think I haven't had to blow up balloons and do all this shit for my friends when they've been engaged or having a baby or whatever the fuck? Yeah, would I rather be maybe, like, sitting around and, like, watching TV and doing what I want? Yes, but, like, if you really truly care about the person and they're one of your best friends, like, you're excited to do stuff for them. Like, it's just it's so like, "Oh, sorry, you had to," and she's like, "Do you know how hard it is to blow up balloons manually?" "Yes, I do, actually. I have a child. I've blown up a gajillion balloons. It's not that bad. Calm down, okay?" Danny says they were on the boat for 6 hours. Yeah, that's the other that's I would rather do the balloon blowing in the hotel room if but that's me. I'm not a, you know, a fishing boat is not appealing to me at all. I would much rather be in the hotel room. I would rather do decorations. Like that's what I would rather do. Um, he said they literally ran to their room so they could quickly get ready. They ran down there as fast as possible. They were sweaty from the boat. Yeah, like it make to me this all made sense in the first place. I don't know why we're even talking about it, but well, I do because these babies made a thing about it. Zach says once he told Jasmine and Melissa that this was actually an engagement, he asked them for help. He's like, within 10 minutes of helping, and he's sitting right next to Jasmine, by the way. So this is what I like about them. He's like, within 10 minutes of helping, you guys were complaining, and then you left to get ready and you were gone for an hour and a half. Okay, so what the fuck? So according to Zach, they only helped with the balloons and stuff for like 10 minutes. They were complaining and then they left. They sound terrible. I'm sorry. This really makes Jasmine sound terrible. Like you, first of all, she's complaining about the blowing up of balloons. Really? Is it that bad? And you could only help for 10 minutes to decorate for your friends? Like, I don't know. It's just not a good look. Um, and then Jasmine's like, no, we were not gone for an hour and a half. But it's funny because she doesn't argue that they only stayed for 10 minutes. She's like, no, we were. And Zach's like, yes, we were. Get the timestamps, get the filming. And then they kind of like argue about it, but like in a funny way back and forth. And then Jasmine says, no, it was super fast. It was not an hour. And Zach's like, it was an hour. So I was like, okay. So it sounds like Jasmine and Melissa helped out for 10 minutes and then they went. They had plenty of time to get ready, which is probably why they were on time and all that. And Zach's even like, you looked very nice. And she's like, it's not about that. I'm so sorry you had to blow up balloons. I think the real reason she's upset here is because she was doing the stuff that was not being filmed and shown on the show. And Danny and Nia were on the boat, and that was going to be a big scene on the show, that would be in the previews. Like, I think it's really the camera time thing, to be honest. So Danny says no one gives us a break. He's right. No one gives them a break. It's true. Zach says it was only 5 or 10 minutes after being on the boat all day. Danny and Nia were not even that late. And then Jasmine's like, what exactly did they do on the boat? Why? I don't understand why she's so mad about this. And then Zach says they were there. Like, I don't know. And then Jasmine's like, exactly. I don't think you proved what you think you proved, but okay. Zach says, I get it. But Zach goes, I had 0 minutes to get ready and I'm not complaining. And Jasmine's like, well, you chose that. Wow. Wow. Okay, Jasmine. Like, I just feel like it's just constantly like being negative when you don't need to be negative. Like, I kind of see why you're friends with Janet now. Okay. Then we talk about Britt and Kristen's friendship. Britt says she thinks she treats Janet and Kristen the same. Kristen says Brittany doesn't concern herself with the stuff Janet says. And if Kristen and Zack were to do the stuff that Janet did, it wouldn't even go that far because Brittany would like step in and say something. Brittany says she understands their feelings, but this summer was a lot for her. So yeah, there's like always an excuse that, I was going through and fine, she was going through a hard time, but like you always found the energy and the oomph to like stand up for Janet or to like see Janet's point of view. And I'm sorry, but like that's not even really the issue. The issue to me is that Brittany does a lot of like low key pot stirring. And I do think a lot of stuff is kind of started by her on the down low. Anyways, we'll get into that later. But Zach says, sorry, the common denominator is really when Janet came into the fold of Brittany's life. I mean, we know Zach is ready to blame Janet for everything, which so am I. So that's good. Jasmine says if Janet goes off on Zach, Britt will let her. But if Zach goes off on Janet, Britt will step in right away and be like, stop, Zach, which that is true. And now even Jasmine's saying it. Finally, something useful. Thank you. Zach says Brittany knows he'll be there forever, so that's why she'll even like distance herself from him because she knows he'll come back, and Janet maybe will not. I don't know. But yeah, Janet does see I can see Janet being the type of friend who like holds things over your head and like, if you're not like checking in enough and da da da, then she's gonna be like playing victim because clearly she plays victim about everything. So I could see that. Britt says Janet doesn't sit around and trash Kristen all day because she knows that Kristen is her friend. I find this hard to believe. Like maybe Janet doesn't trash Kristen as much as she would like to, but I still think that she does. I think if she could do it as much as she wanted to Brittany, she'd be talking about her all day. But I think instead she just talks about her like, half the time instead. Kristen says Britt has told her that Janet is talking shit about her in the group chat and that Britt will be like, I don't engage. And Kristen is like, but why does she feel comfortable saying that to you? And Kristen says, I would never talk shit about Janet to Brittany. Yes, and that is true. Why does she feel comfortable? That says something. And, just because it's a group chat doesn't make it okay. And also, why is Brittany even telling Kristen this in the first place? This is my point. This is unnecessary. Even if Janet is, which she shouldn't be in the first place, but she is because she's Janet. Why is Brittany running to tell Kristen? See, this is where I really like Brittany's trying to pretend she's like playing neutral. She even says, like, I play Switzerland. You're not. You're actually adding fuel to the fire because if Kristen, like, ignorance is bliss if she just didn't know about this. Um, and then where was I? Zach says that Brittany says that Janet will talk to me about you. So there you go. Again. So then Brittany is going to Zach and being like, Janet talks shit about you to me. And Zach's like, I would never talk about Brittany to Janet because that puts Brittany in a weird position. And then they go to Janet. And Janet says, Brittany tells her, shocking. Brittany tells her that Kristen will call Brittany and complain about Janet all the time. And then Janet's like, I would never talk to Brittany about Kristen and put her in that position. And also, Brittany told Janet that Kristen says, you always defend Janet when I talk about her, but when she talks about me, I know you don't defend me. And Janet's like, I wouldn't put that on Brittany, especially when she's going through such a hard time. I would love it. Like, I hope they start filming now because I want them to be seeing this after show, which I know they did because I saw an interview with Zach and he said there was things in the after show that he wished they could have seen before the reunion, but since they had to film the reunion so early, they couldn't do that. But basically, I really think that this is a very interesting scene because this shows us that everyone is talking shit to Brittany probably at least once or twice. It seems like it's Janet who does it the most. But the fucked up thing is not that everyone's shit talking because everybody kind of like, if I'm just going to live in the real world for a second, we all are going to vent to our friends sometimes about our friends and we shouldn't. But people do that. I'm sorry. It's true. People do that. But what you shouldn't do is be Brittany and be going to all of them and saying that. So Brittany's going to Zach and saying that. Brittany's going to Kristen and saying that. And she's going to Janet and saying that. You say, Brittany, that you want them to make up and be friends again and to get along. And you're complaining, I can't hang out with them all at the same time because they don't like me. But you're the one really causing this. Like, they all have their reasons for not liking each other, but they could get along and things could get better. But the more that you're fueling it by telling them about this, the worse it's going to be. Like, some things are just better left unsaid. Like, every time Janet has something to say about Kristen, you don't have to run and tell Kristen. She doesn't need to ever know about it. You know what I mean? Like, in order for the two of them to be civil and just, I'm not saying they have to be besties again, but just to be civil and get along within the group of friends, this is not helping. And this is what I mean. Like, Brittany is doing this on purpose. I'm not believing this, like, dumbass act or this, like, duh act. She knows what she's doing. Okay. Zach says Brittany's past birthday, Janet didn't come because Britt invited him. And I guess Janet had made a bunch of posts about Brittany for her birthday, and Janet took them down because Zack was invited. So yeah, Janet does put it on Britt, and he says he does stress her out. And Jasmine co-signs this. So just saying, that is really fucked. Like, you're like punishing your friends because they're friends with someone you don't like to the point that like you make a birthday post for them and you take it down. Like, if that doesn't say everything about Janet's character, I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say. Like, she's a nut. And then Britt says she's better being Switzerland and doesn't know how to make everybody happy. Oh, well, I'll tell you how to not make everyone happy or how to make everyone happy. Stop telling everyone whenever they vent to you. You don't have to go back to all three of them and tell them. And really, I think she's doing it on purpose because she's trying to produce. She's trying to like ghost produce the show. That is part of it. I think if they weren't on the show, she might not be. And it's so funny because earlier this episode, she said she's so good at keeping secrets. Well, it doesn't seem like you are. Because every time any of your friends bitch to you, you go and tell the people that they're bitching about. And you also told about Kristen's engagement. So doesn't seem like you're that good at it. Okay. All right. So let's go to what episode is this? 13. Which this one, the after show was much shorter. The last one was really long. There was a lot in that episode. So this one, they talk about the tattoos, and Kristen says, oh my God, they're going to think of me every time they look at those for the rest of their lives. And I was like, see, that's actually true. It was funny because Janet said something about like in the newest episode about Kristen, like thinking of her whenever she looks at her engagement ring. And I was like, why would she think of you? Like, I don't understand what the connection was. Like, I understand they had a fight on the boat, but that was like way after the actual proposal. Like, anyways, it had nothing. Like, I just think that was stupid. And then it's funny because then Kristen says this in the after show, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense because they legit went and got those tattoos because of the rumor that Kristen brought up. So yes, they will think of Kristen, which is hilarious. Zack and Jasmine just kind of make snarky comments about the rings and roll their eyes. You can tell that they think it's stupid, which it absolutely is. Jason says his is dark and Janet's is like skin color. Okay. He seems very happy about it. Janet says she doesn't need Jason's location because he's home most of the time and he doesn't lie. Okay. Jason says he doesn't even really go anywhere except the gym. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Considering that in these, I was dying. In these interviews, Jason is sitting with guess who? Mr. Brock, the gym cheater himself. It was so funny because Jason's trying to say this as a like, I don't cheat. The only place I go is the gym. Well, your friend who's sitting right next to you cheated at the gym, so I guess it is possible. And like, who? I don't go anywhere except the gym. Look to your left, sir. Just the jokes write themselves. Okay, Brock jokes that Sheena has his location. Well, I would think so at this point, now that we know about you, sir, and that he should get an android like Jason to get out of it. Maybe you shouldn't be making these jokes, Brock. Like, seriously. Then they talk about Cruz, which I didn't want to skip this over because I thought, this was an important thing, I have a lot of shit to talk about Brittany, but I will not shit talk how she's handling the autism diagnosis and stuff. She seems like she's doing everything right. And, like she's kind of like celebrating her son and who he is. And I think that's great. So Cruz is not allowed to stay at Jax's condo, but not until, oh, sorry, this isn't where they talk about the autism. This is, oh no, that's next. First, they just talk about where he's going. So he's not allowed to stay at Jax's condo, or he wasn't until Jax was sober. So I guess Jax went to rehab the second time and I guess actually did it the second time, allegedly. Again, I don't believe anything from Jax's mouth, but whatever. Britt says she does drug testing. She feels safe about it now, but he's only gone over there like 5 times total. So it's obviously not a lot. Jack says he usually comes to their house because, he likes this anyways because Cruz is more comfortable in his home with his like sensory stuff. And he's like, I don't want to disrupt his environment. You made him and Brittany move out. Like, him trying to pretend now that he suddenly cares about this is very annoying. And like, I don't want, he's got sensory stuff. Yeah. And you kicked him out. Like, I just cannot even wrap my head around that he did that. I cannot in 1,000 years imagine allowing like my husband and daughter to be the ones to leave and her to not be in her own home. It is the most disgusting, psychotic thing. Jesse says, where does he say he has to move? But long story short, Jesse has to move. He's I don't know if he can't afford his place. It was a big convoluted thing. I couldn't really follow it, but he's moving, okay? And they make a joke about how he should move to the valley, and he's kind of like, nah, no. So then they talk about the autism diagnosis. Britt says she was ready, like mentally. She knew it was coming, but it took 4 months to get the first appointment. And then you have like 4 different appointments before the diagnosis, and it's very comprehensive and it takes a while. So, yeah, which makes sense. She says her, Jax, and their nanny, who is like family to them, all take turns like going to occupational therapy and speech therapy because then they can all be educated about, you know, what they need to do, things that they can do in the home. And she says, she's learning so much. She says, um, Zack says Britt has celebrated Cruz and his autism through that article. And she says she wants to be a positive advocate so others can make sure they get early intervention because it's so important. Yeah. So I mean, listen, I think the way, like, I think one thing that I respected about this was she didn't talk about it like, it's like it's a curse or it's like the end of the world or something. Like, is it a difficult and challenging journey? You want your child, every parent wants their child to not be different or to not be left out, to not, you know, have a difficult life. We all want our kids to have like a good life, right? That's like a normal thing. But I think her attitude about it is the right attitude. And, it seems like she's doing all the right things. So kudos to her on that. Jack says he doesn't want more kids because he wants to give more attention to Cruz. Well, that would be good because it seems like you're giving him like none as of now. So it's like, so are you going to go from like 0 to like 2 maybe on the scale of 100? He says he doesn't want to get married again because he doesn't want to be in the situation where he has to explain to like his new wife and kid that he has to leave for Cruz. He wants to be there 100% for his son and be 5 minutes away. So here's, Jax's annual, let me prove to everyone that I'm a good father and that, I'll sacrifice my whole life for my son, even though I kicked him out of the house and I barely see him. Okay. Again, I don't know how much he sees him now, but I'm not falling for this. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. And of course, Jax doesn't want to get married again. Number one, he probably can't afford it. And number two, he just wants to like torment Brittany for the rest of his life. And then he'll just have other girls on the side. Like I really think that's his plan as of now. Not a good plan, but that's his plan. So then we talk about Janet and Jason, and the whole like Janet worrying that Jason is too good for her. Jason says no one has ever thought he was too good for her until people on the internet who didn't like her said that. And Janet says that she's always thought Jason's wearing like rose-colored glasses for her, and she thinks you shouldn't get married until you can't believe that you got that person and that they chose you, and she says he's too good for her. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with like marrying someone thinking they're too good for you, but whatever. You do you. She says no, I say that in a loving way, and then when others say it online it does bother me. Okay. I don't think anyone would ever say that if Janet had a good personality. Like, it's not about appearances. I don't know if she just thinks like Jason's like so hot or something. And it's more about personality. And here's the other thing. It was maybe about appearances at first because Janet had a terrible personality and Jason's good looking and he seemingly had a good personality. However, then we got to know Jason, and now no one thinks that because now we realize that his personality sucks too. So now we're kind of like, okay, it makes sense. It was just like, don't worry. It was Janet. It was just that we just didn't know Jason that well yet. But now that we know him, it all makes sense. No one thinks, he's too good for you. You're good. I don't think that's going to make anyone feel better, but okay, let's go to episode 14. So that's it for episode 13. It was very short after show. We talk about Zack yelling. Jason and Brock are like, what was Zack mad about? And then they laugh. Zack says people don't understand the gaslighting that he's been through. And then they do this montage of him versus Janet, season 1. He has been through, we do. I think your friend group doesn't, but the audience understands the gaslighting. Zack says all these little things have been festering and then he blows up. Kristen co-signs this. Janet says if Brittany sticks up for her, it's because she sticks up for what's right and she's not just blindly loyal to people. So if you are not expecting blind loyalty, then why did you take down the birthday pictures when she invites Zack to her birthday party? Like, let her do what she thinks is right, which according to you, that's what Brittany does. So it's funny because, like, as long as you're doing what Janet agrees with and what Janet thinks is right, then it's like she's good. Otherwise, otherwise she's deleting your pictures. So Kristen says, does Janet really want to be this close to Brittany or does she want to be Brittany? Does anybody want to be Brittany though? Like, I'm not trying to defend Janet here. Like, I think if anything, Janet wants to be kind of like a Stassi mixed with Sheena, mixed with like a little bit, you know what I mean? I don't think anyone wants to be Brittany. Janet says she doesn't want to be Brittany, but she wants to support her and be there for her. Okay. I was kind of like, where is this? Like, who said she wants to be Brittany? Maybe I missed that. But then Kristen says, I guess Kristen at some point, Kristen says, you can't just want to be Brittany. She's gone through so much and has sacrificed so much to get where she is. Yeah. I mean, she married an abusive narcissist to get on TV. Got herself right out of Kentucky. She's in LA. She's famous in the reality world. I guess that was a sacrifice. I don't know if it was the best choice, and then she mentions how Janet started hanging around Ariana all the time when Scandival happened. And then they show a picture of Janet cozied right up to Ariana at some event. And then Kristen's like, so yeah, it does seem like, I see what she's saying. Like Kristen is saying like whoever is like the one who's like got the biggest drama going on or is in like the limelight, she'll like cozy up to basically. Kristen thinks Zack just wants Janet to stop being an asshole to him and that he truly wants to make up. She says that when she watches like scenes with him and Janet like trying to make up, she can tell that is what he wants, which I think so too. But again, I think Brittany is making it impossible for any of you to make up because she's doing all this like backdoor shit talking and telling you all, oh, this person just said something about you. Like you're never going to be able to make up. That's it because of Brittany. And I do hope that from watching this after show that they all see that and that this gets addressed next season. Because Brittany, listen, she doesn't get out of jail free card because Jax is an asshole forever. Jax isn't going to be on the show next season. Her feet need to be held to the fire for her involvement in the group drama. Okay. So then we get to was Jax trying to take down Danny and Nia? Well, I think we all know the answer because he's so bad at it and he makes it so obvious. Britt says that there was some rumor that Danny and Nia were being protected. Allegedly, Danny and Nia said this, according to Brittany. I don't know why they would say such a thing that would put a target on their back. It seems crazy to me, which is why I just feel like it's a rumor. Jax is like, by the way, when Brittany says there's a rumor, it probably came from Jax. Jax probably told Britt that they said it because he's trying to like, rally the entire cast around Danny and Nia, trying to take them down because he wants to take the focus off him because he knows that this is like his worst season ever and he has not a shot in hell of looking good unless he makes somebody else look bad, and that's always been what Jax does. Whenever he looks bad, he tries to find somebody else to take down, to deflect. So he probably was like, "Hey, you know what? I was told, one of the producers told me that Danny and Nia are protected, or I heard Danny and Nia saying that they're protected." He probably started that. Him and Brittany probably went and told the rest of the group, and that's why we have the season that we have. Okay? That's my theory. Jackson's like, "You don't get to pick and choose what you want to talk about. It doesn't work that way." Well, clearly it does, because you have had 10 years of choosing to not talk about your coke addiction, and you have been verbally and physically abusive, and we're just hearing about that now as well. So clearly you were allowing Brit to protect you. Like, it's insane. Nia says she thinks the rumor came from Janet to Brittany to Jax. Okay. I think it started with Jax, but Nia thinks it started with Janet, which I'm sure if she thinks that, she has a reason to, and I would believe her on that. Luke says, so this group has so many like he said, she says, so many rumors, etc. Luke says he thinks it came from Brittany, to be honest. Oh, interesting. And you know what? Based on everything that I have heard in this after show and watching the season, I could also see it being Brittany. And I actually, I don't put it past Janet, of course, but I actually believe that Brittany would. I think that Brittany's life has been such a fucking train wreck that her and Jax would, I think, even before things got really bad, I do think that the two of them would put this out there, because look at how Brittany acted in that Santa Barbara trip. Like, she was so mad. She's like, "I'm sharing everything and they're not sharing anything." Like, we saw that. We saw that side of her. She has that in her. So I do think that she would be fine with that, to like, so that her thing isn't like the only storyline. I could see that. Um, Britt says she didn't start the rumor and she can't even tell you who did, but it was swirled around. Okay, so that kind of sounds like it was you. And it was swirled around, and she thinks that that's what led to all the stuff in Santa Barbara. Why do you have to say you think that's what led to the Santa Barbara stuff? You're the one, you are the Santa Barbara. Sorry if my mic just cracked. You are the Santa Barbara stuff. You're the one who was upset in Santa Barbara. So what you're saying is that you were pissed off because you thought Nia and Danny were being protected. So that's why you had that full meltdown about like Nia, like, quote unquote, protecting Danny. And then she's like, "Yeah, I think that's what led to the stuff in Santa Barbara and my weird night in Hawaii." It's not a weird night in Hawaii. Neither of these are weird nights. You don't get like, "Oh, I was just having a hard time." No, both of these were deliberate. Both of these were, you were feeling jealous. You don't like that the audience is like Nia and Danny. You feel like, you know, they need to like show more of their problems, or you feel like they're hiding stuff and you are targeting them. This is like a malicious targeted act. This is not like, whoops, like that must be subconsciously why I got so upset in Santa Barbara. No, this is like a conscious thing. So Danny says it was Brittany and that it's not true. So see, it was Brittany. I forgot that before I started talking about all this. He said him and Nia never said that. See, weird. I wonder if a producer told this to Brittany or something. I don't know. And he says, if I'm so protected, why is everyone constantly bringing up the Halloween incident and attacking me over drinking? Yeah, I mean, clearly if there was some sort of protection from like production or whatever, this would not have all been in the season. This is what the whole season was about. Um Nia says she was shocked when she first heard that because she feels like they're not protected at all. And in fact, everyone's trying to ruin their lives. Yeah, I mean, that is what it seems like. Danny says that Jack said him and Nia had a target on their back and he was coming for them. Because when he spirals and goes down, he reaches for who's ever higher to bring them down as well. And he said all this to Danny. I really think, as much as I know Britt is getting divorced and sees that Jax is terrible, I could see that before the divorce happened, like between seasons 1 and 2, before they started filming and, she was like, "You have a coke addiction, go to rehab." I can see her and Jax having this conversation. I really can. I can see them conspiring and being like, "Wow, look how easy those two got off. We looked like we were fighting and on camera and we were whatever, and my husband was accusing me of being an alcoholic and da da da, and they look like little Miss Perfect couple." Like, I can totally see all of this, and I don't think Brittany's innocent at all. Danny says that Jax was pretty adamant that he was coming for Danny and his marriage. Yeah, see, this is the thing with Jax is like he's not sly. Like he just straight out is like, "I'm coming for you." Jax says it wasn't a takedown. I mean, it wasn't because you are so bad at it. It was not much of one. Like you tried and failed miserably. He says he was just frustrated. And then Schwartz makes a joke and is like, "It was more about making sure he knows who the number one guy is." And then Jax is like, "Yeah." And then they all laugh. And as much as I understand that that was a joke, I do think that is really what it is. Like, I think the audience liked Danny and Nia, and I think Jax is like literally just bothered by that. I think that's it. Like, I think they were the most liked in terms of the couples, and Jax couldn't stand it. Like, he doesn't like that. He wants to be like, I don't know what delusion he has in his head, but he is delusional. He's got these like, "This is my show." Like the fact that he got fired again after saying that this was his show the second time, like that speaks volumes. Then they talk about the house. Brittany tries to justify, why she needs the big house, the amount of rooms, and that the house is not. I'm like, you don't need to justify it. If you can afford it and you want to pay $18,000 a month or whatever craziness is there, and that's where Cruz is comfortable, like the only person who is shaming you for staying in a big house is Jax. And his opinion means nothing because he's the reason that the house cost that money in the first place. Like he has nothing to say. Jax is like, "It's a lot of work. It's a lot of maintenance. The outside alone, that was my job." And then Britt's like, "I got a landscaper. It looks better than ever. The flowers are blooming." Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, like, men, I know they're like they like to feel needed, etcetera, but if you can afford it, you can throw money at most of these things that are things that Jax used to do, I'm sure. And I'm sure he didn't do them that much. I mean, how productive could he have been? Like, when he's, like, hungover or drugged out. Then they talk about Jesse and Michelle's co-parenting. Jesse said they had a good conversation on the finale, and then they flash over to Michelle, who says she hated it. Okay. She says she hated it because she didn't like his speech and his tears. Listen, I I get what she's saying because she's saying that she probably feels like he's playing like victim for the camera and all this kind of stuff, which I get that. But then there was another time, I can't remember which episode it was, where it was either an episode or after show where she says that Jesse cries a lot. So when she said that, I was like, so does he cry a lot or are the tears fake? Now, that being said, if somebody cries a lot, it could be like, well, you don't take it as seriously when they cry because they cry about everything or they cry really easily. Those people exist, right? So okay. But it's kind of like, you know, is it real or is it not real? Like, it's kind of hard to say because you did say that he cries a lot. So I don't know. Anyways, Michelle's like, "Of course I'm tired, but I'm not doing it." She's like, "It was another bullshit conversation." So I guess she's saying that like he's the one who's causing it to get dragged out, etc. Fine. Again, I'm sure he would again, these two, they both have a side and they both, they're again the classic divorce couple. And listen, if he's the one doing it and then he's saying that he doesn't want to do it anymore, then just take it. Just take it and let it end because you can't keep going like this. Jesse said they needed it because he said things started out well. And then, you're reminded, you go on like a trip to Hawaii and you have a good time and you're kind of reminded, like, what are we even fighting about? And then Michelle's like, "He called me a hooker." She'll never get over that. "He made my life miserable." She says he hasn't changed at all since last summer. I mean, who cares? He's not your husband anymore. You're divorced. He's, you know, allegedly things have gotten better with you guys, co-parenting, cooperating, all that kind of stuff. Who cares what the reason is, whether he's actually changed or not? Just take it, get the divorce. And if he hasn't changed and he's as terrible as ever, it's going to come out. Like, just trust people like that. They can't, if they are hiding, they can only do it for so long. And like you shouting from the rooftops that he's terrible over and over again, it's not helping anything. It's just making people not like you because it's like a broken record and they're sick of listening to it. Okay. Sheena says he's only changed to try and present himself better. Again, if he, here's my thing, does it matter the reason? If he's actually changed and starts like being more cooperative with Michelle, being more respectful, making the divorce easier, but the reason is just for his own like persona to the public, does it matter? Isn't the fact that like he's just not being as annoying with Michelle and not making things, isn't that what matters? Like, I don't, like, I think that a lot of what Jesse does is for his, like, the way that he looks on camera. So, if he's like, the second cameras are down, he's still like torturing her and like making everything difficult, then, that's not good. But if he is legit changing because he knows the world is watching him, like who cares what the reasoning is? He's not going to change just because like he one day realizes like that Michelle is a wonderful person and he's treated her wrong. I just don't think that's realistic. Like I just think like who cares? As long as he's actually leaving you alone and letting you get on with your life, then yeah, that's all that matters. Um okay. Jesse says, where was I? That he listens to a podcast by a big divorce lawyer who says to honor holidays by getting gifts from the kids. So, if it's like Mother's Day and you're divorced, you get a gift for the mom from the kid, but you go out and buy it. Okay. Jesse says he's been trying to do this. He says he gets a little card or a little gift from Isabella. She signs the card, whatever. And they give it to Michelle on Mother's Day, for example. He says he never gets a card or a gift for Father's Day or anything from Isabella because Michelle doesn't do that. Jesse says he got, which again, listen, I understand what you can say, like, I listened to a podcast and they said to do this, but Michelle didn't listen to that podcast. Like, did you tell her about that? Did you tell her that would be like a nice thing? Like, you can't get mad at somebody because they didn't have an idea that you have. Like, she might just think, like, well, we're divorced now, you know, that's kind of like their thing. I don't know. Like, and maybe it would be nice if she would think of that, but I don't necessarily think she's like obligated to do that. Maybe that's something you have a conversation about. I don't know. I'm just saying. But, I do understand why it would suck as a parent to not get like the Father's Day or Mother's Day card from your kid once the divorce because the kids can't really do it when they're that age. Like when she's older, she can do it herself. But, I do think like you have to vocalize these expectations because people aren't going to know, or you have to ask in a nice, respectful way. Right. But he says that he got a ring that says Michelle and Isabella for Isabella to give to her for Mother's Day. And then he got one that said Jesse and Isabella for just him and Isabella. And he gave Michelle hers for her birthday. It was like wrapped from Isabella, but she left it at the house and she hasn't worn it. So he put it in Isabella's jewelry box. Listen, do I think she should have taken it with her and been like, thank you, Isabella, or whatever? Yes. Do I also think that maybe she feels uncomfortable, like taking gifts from her ex? Maybe she thought he was trying to get her back. I don't know. Like, I think there's two sides to this. It sounds, if I'm just taking Jesse's word, it sounds a little petty on her side. But again, these are the kind of things that, like, once you have established like a good co-parenting relationship, then these things can happen. I think maybe they just need more time. Then Jax tries to jump in with some sob stories about his divorce, and I just ignored it because I'm not like, I'm done giving him any sort of like, it's just so clear it's all made up bullshit. I just can't even give it any time of day. All right, so that's it. And if you're looking for a recap of the finale episode of The Valley and other Bravo shows like Orange County, Miami, I know Next Gen NYC is ending, but I'm going to do a recap for that this weekend too. Head over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And until next time, you are now in the know for everything Valley. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. Send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.